On today's episode of Locked On 76ers, the Sixers, well, they've won their last two games. Are they starting to find their way? We discussed that and a lot more as they get ready for Washington tonight. Final game of a four-game trip. Keith Pompey and I next, right here at Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. What's up, D?
What's up is a lot of winning happening in Philadelphia, Keith. That's what's happening.
Yeah, you're right. The Eagles still undefeated, huh?
7-0. They got the Texans on Thursday night. So I'm guessing 8-0. Phillies in the World Series, Game 3 tonight. They did the job. They split like they were supposed to in Houston. Mm-hmm. The Union are now in the championship in the MLS, and the Sixers have won 2 games in a row, and the Flyers are playing pretty well themselves. Not a lot to complain about, Keith. Not a lot.
Not a lot, bro.
Not a lot. But we're here to talk a lot of Sixers, so we're going to do that. We welcome you all to Locked On 76ers. I'm Devon Givens. That's Keith Pompey. He's from theinquirer.com, Sixers beat writer. I am from 97.5 The Fanatic Radio in Philadelphia. We thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. And remember, Locked On 76ers is free and available on all platforms, including right here at YouTube on Locked On 76ers. Well, Keith.
Devon, let me cut you off a little bit. Yo, Devon being modest. He need to start saying, I am Devon Givens of the Devon Givens Show on 97.5 FM radio. You know, you just make it seem like you just answering calls or something. This is the guy, the host of the Devon Givens Show. I've been meaning to say that for like a week.
Well, I mean, yeah, yes.
Your own self your flowers, bruh.
Well, it's been my show for a while now. So
that's why you say that.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that, man. It's always fun, especially when I'm wrapped around, having to adjust things wrapped around the Sixers and the Flyers throughout the season. But, there's always a lot to talk about around it. And right now, what's crazy, Keith, as we talk about all this and get ready for the Sixers tonight, I can't remember a time where, the Phillies and the Flyers and the Sixers, yes, but not when the Eagles are playing like this. The Phillies are in the World Series, so they're playing deep into the baseball season, in November now. Sixers and Flyers just getting started. The Union will really start to pick up traction these last couple of seasons. I can't remember a time where it's been this busy at one particular moment with all of the teams.
Yeah, you know what? I would have to say in the early 80s, maybe, when the Eagles went, I believe because the Eagles did go to the Super Bowl in the 80s, right? And that when they lost.
So in 1980, I think all 4 of them went to their championships.
Yeah. So that's what, around. And now again, we were like way young.
I was too young. Yeah,
too young. Yeah. I kind of remember peeking up. Like I remember peeking up on somebody's lap to look at a score or something like that. But it's been that, and you got to think about it. We didn't have the Union back then, so it wasn't that thing. I mean, it was crazy because at that particular time, I mean, you don't remember, but we could read it. But the Sixers were the third best team in the league. The Eagles had Dick Vermeil, they had Bill Berge, they had some other Jaws, Ron Jaworski, Harold Carmichael, and they were a great team, but they were also like a Cinderella squad, right? The Flyers were the truth. I mean, they were like that squad. And the Phillies, they had Mike Smith, they had Pete Rose, they had a lot of guys, so they were that squad too. But yeah, when you look at it now, Philly is the place to be right now, and it's to a point where when our Sixers lose, Philadelphia Sixers lose, then all of a sudden it's like, yo, y'all messing up. Y'all ain't getting the program.
So guess what? They won the last 2. And it doesn't take long to flip that record right around. And tonight they have the chance to go 500 tonight for the first time this season since they were 0-0 on the campaign. So Keith, these last two games, Friday and Saturday, we did a show, of course, before Friday's game, kind of laying out what was going to happen this weekend against Toronto, needing to improve there. They win that game, and they win that game without Joel Embiid, who was out, and we'll get to him a little bit later with his load management. They win that game, they go small, and it was a great win. They win by 22 points over the Toronto Raptors. They follow it up on the second night of a back-to-back, leading the Chicago Bulls by 19 at one point. The Bulls came back in the second half, even took the lead, and the Sixers had to find some resolve in there and come back and win that game also, and they did. They won, and they are now 3-4 on the season, Keith. They've won 2 games in a row, and as I mentioned, a chance to go 4-4 tonight, even their record up to 500, last game of this 4-game road trip. What are you seeing in this team right now that has been at least a little bit different from what we saw the first couple of games, especially in those losses?
You know, the main thing that I'm seeing is that the bench play has improved. You know, and it's kind of weird because I feel like Doc Rivers has made an adjustment to where he's getting these guys more involved. Well, and the main thing is, if you look at it, there's 2 guys who he inserted into the rotation, Shake Milton and Matisse Thybulle. Now, me and you, we called for Matisse to play, right? So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? We did that.
Yep.
And then another guy you talked about, you asked who should play, and we said Shake. And the thing about it is, but we also said, but if you're going to play him, don't just have him running up and down. You got to get him involved. And it seems like they're doing that. Another guy who has also ascended, in my opinion, is DeAnthony Melton. I mean, DeAnthony Melton's play has been on fire on both ends of the floor. So when you add that, now I also think that there has been some awareness, whereas in the Toronto game, when you see that Joel Embiid does not play because of resting his knee, that whereas James Harden has the ball, but he realized that Tyrese Maxey is on fire. All of his teammates realized Tyrese Maxey is on fire. So they turned the game into the Tyrese Maxey show, which worked out well. So I think that there was a lot of unselfishness on the floor, and that enabled them to run away with that one. The second game, they had great ball movement in the first half. The second half, they went away from it a little bit. So that concerns me a little bit. But I do think that the improved bench and the unselfishness in that Toronto Raptors game were parts of the major improvements.
Yeah, and Tyrese Maxey on Friday going 15 for 20, 9 for 12 from beyond. You were there, Keith, and just watching it. And I was talking about this post game where, look, at some point, many of us, even if it wasn't obviously on a pro level, but playing in the league or playing in your school team, whatever sport, where you get in whatever form that is of a zone for your sport. And you could see that he was in the zone. And, you've had games where you may play again, pick up, whatever it is, and you just going off and you just feel really good. And you know what it looks like. And I'm watching him and I'm like, oh, he just has that bounce to him right now after he made his first couple in the first quarter and he couldn't miss. And I'm like, okay, this is about to be a good night. I didn't know he was going to get 40. I thought he would get in that mid-30s, somewhere along there. And I also thought Toronto did a really good job in the third quarter. That was the Sixers' worst quarter, where they only put up 16 points in that frame. But he was just in such a good rhythm. And to see the confidence that he has in himself, not let alone to make 9, but he took 12. And that just goes to show where his confidence level is right now to take that 3-point shot and feel good about making it every single time it leaves his fingertips. He was tremendous in that game, using his speed, obviously in the other areas of that game too. And I really, really enjoyed watching him. Then the next night, Saturday, to your point, something that carried over from there, the Matisse Thybulle angle, as you mentioned, and Shake Milton. Shake Milton doesn't have to be in there for 15 minutes, but when he's in there, he has a specific role that he needs to play. and he's playing it. And he's not firing shots up at a high rate. Yes, he's scoring, but he's not firing up at a high rate. And then defensively for Matisse Thybulle, we just simply talked about them needing with one of the worst perimeter defensive teams in the league right now. You needed somebody that could defend out there on the perimeter. Toronto has all these different versatile players that can hurt you, and you're not playing arguably your best perimeter defender for whatever reason. And he decided, Doc Rivers did, to put him in the game. Played 21 minutes, knocked down 2 threes, took about 5 3-pointers that night, and was very active, very disruptive on the defensive end, like we talked about when we felt that he should have been in the lineup. And then to tag along with that, I'll follow you. You know, my favorite pickup from this offseason was DeAnthony Melton. And he and Matisse Thybulle, like we would talk about during the offseason, I couldn't wait to see a defensive lineup of Thybulle, Melton, House, Tucker, and Embiid, and see what kind of havoc they could wreak out there on the floor. And we're starting to see that now, Keith, where we're seeing much better perimeter defense. They're talking, they're communicating now. We don't see as many defensive breakdowns as we saw in those first 4 games of the season. And I also like this, the Melton, Maxey, Harden, when they went small ball against Toronto on that Friday night, with those 3 as the 3-guard lineup that was out there. I thought they were tremendous together, especially in the fourth quarter of the first game where we talked about where they lost. And then we see it again in the second game, and they just look really good, man. I like that 3. I like what Melton is doing. He and Maxey out there together, including Harden. I like what they've done so far. So those are some of the things. Their defensive transition has been much better also. Protecting the ball a little bit better. They had a bad night against Chicago because it turned around so quickly in the second half, as you talked about. But some really positive signs for this team right now.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. There's been some extremely positive signs. I mean, and extremely positive. And let's face it, I was adamant, like, don't do it, D. Don't do it, D. And you held your horses, and and we look at it. I'm talking about the Spurs. I'm talking about the we're talking about the Spurs. We're talking about Boston Celtics, and I'm talking about the Milwaukee Bucks. So if we look at it, the Sixers' 3 losses came to teams with a combined 14-4 record. Milwaukee's 5-0, the Spurs are 5-2, and the Celtics are 4-2. So when you look at it, you know what? Things appear to be up for the Sixers because they did. You were correct. At this time, they lost to, 2 of the first 3. I mean, 2 of the 3 of the top teams in the league right now.
Yeah, right now. Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, man. When we come back on the other side, we'll talk about Joel Embiid, a little bit of load management there, and also something that James Harden said after the game that kind of piqued our interest. We'll tap into that next right here, Locked On 76ers.
Okay. Right now, I want to talk to y'all about Bet Online, right? Why? You keep asking why I always want to talk about Bet Online. The reason why I want to talk about Bet Online is because Bet Online is your number 1 source for betting football and the start of the new basketball season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchup, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis on every game. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information, with live betting and up-to-the-minute sports for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Couldn't get it out. Bet online where the game starts. And I'm telling y'all, do it today, people. Definitely do it today.
Absolutely, and thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Keith, all right, Joel Embiid, as we talked about, Didn't play in the back-to-back. He played on Saturday, not Sunday. He took that. I mean, pardon me. He played on Saturday, not Friday. Took Friday off. The Sixers win by 22. Of course, people start talking. Oh, they can win. Joel
Yeah.
Embiid is slowing them down. Stop. Joel Embiid is still Joel Embiid. They just have to get it all together and figure it out. It's early. They'll be fine, I think. Now, how do you see them playing things out with Joel Embiid and his load management? He's questionable for tonight. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's questionable, but with non-COVID illness, COVID-19 illness, now you got
And
to
this
put
is
that out there.
basically his knee load management, right?
Well, the last one it was, I think what's going on is the Sixers, because of his knee. And if you noticed, everybody's saying nothing wrong with his knee, but you saw him in the preseason with a bandage on his knee. Like, you can't hide it. Like, he had it at media day, you interviewed him and the whole nine, stuff like that. You can't hide that. So they're saying it's nothing new. It's just from the things that they had in the past. But then we also look at his conditioning too, right? So I feel like with carrying this extra weight, being a little bit out of shape, having some knee ailments and all those other things, I think it's a matter of like they might not be comfortable with him playing back-to-backs right now, But I do think that when non-COVID illness, I'm looking forward to seeing, what is said at shoot around. But I do believe that it is, one of those things where he's sick right now, but I do think that he wants to play. He does want to play. He's saying everything's fine with him, but right about now he appears to have a little illness, and but if knowing Joel, he's going to want to play tonight because everyone's looking at it the same way.
Yeah.
Our friends are, your callers, like, yo, what's up? And then here's something else, D, that you just said. I do believe that they got to get this right. Like, they play a certain way without him, which is fine. But
which is good because he's
which is
going
great.
to these games. So you don't stop winning just because he's not there.
You don't, yeah. But at the same time, in order for you to win a big game, a playoff game, Joel Embiid needs to be on the floor. And then also you need to see how you can get Maxey to have great games with Joel on the floor. The same thing with Harden. So I think that for them, this is all practice, even though they count, but it's practice on getting that on-court chemistry the way it should be.
Absolutely. So we'll see about tonight. Even if without him, I mean, look, we'll talk about a preview a little bit later. But Kristaps Porzingis is the big man in the middle there. PJ Tucker goes with the small ball lineup as the five in there. Would Doc Rivers switch that up? Your guess, Keith, would Montrezl Harrell, Paul Reed get the nod, or would you still, as the more traditional center versus what Toronto does with Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes are basically your five-man? Do you see it where Montrezl Harrell or Paul Reed would potentially get the nod if Joel Embiid did not go because Kristaps Porzingis is a 7-footer, legit 7-footer, right around 7'2"?
You know what? I think if Joel can't go, if I'm the Sixers, I'm gonna go back to that small ball lineup, the one that they had with PJ Tucker at the 5. But I also think, like, even if he does go, I think at this particular time, I'm sticking with Montrez and in the rotation that they had the last game. The reason being is like, I think you don't want it to get it to be where guys are saying to themselves, like, yo, what you doing, coach? Like, why are we switching everything up? Like, let's go with what we need to. Not only that, we got to realize that this is a team that traded Montrez. Montrez was in D.C., and then they shipped them to Charlotte. So it's one of those things where I know if I'm a player that I'm going to be extremely motivated to go there and torch this team. And the embarrassing thing for a guy is like, all right, I'm ready to play against this squad, but you decided to sit me and I'm not playing because of that. But so, like, I want to ride the energy that Montrez has. We know it. Montrez can play. He can score points. But guys always get that advantage or that edge when they face their former team. And I don't want to contain that or to I don't know, like, don't give him an opportunity to explode against his other team. I just don't want to do that. Depressing.
I kind of think they might change it up just a bit because he is 7'2", whatever he is. And maybe they'll go with a bigger body to start and bring Melton off the bench instead. In this particular case, leaving PJ Tucker there at the 4-5. I mean, on the wing with Tobias Harris, also James Harden and Tyrese Maxey. So we'll see. We'll see what Doc Rivers and his coaching staff decide to do. But Joel Embiid might play, and all that might not mean anything when it comes to this one tonight in that matchup. All right, James Harden, a quote of interest to us: pace and ball movement is good, is what he said. But at the end of the day, we've got to know what we are trying to accomplish here. We've got playmakers, we've got screeners, we've got shooters. We've got guys that have specific roles that they do, and that's why they're in this league. So as good as we talk about pace and we talk about ball movement and all that, we've got to know what we're trying to accomplish possession by possession. And I think we are trying to get there, end quote. That was James Harden. Keith, what did you make of that statement there by James Harden?
I really didn't have a problem with it. I mean, I know some people do. And the reason why I don't have a problem with it is because he's being honest. Like, right now, yes, they do have to move the ball and they want to. But there have been certain guys in there that you're swinging the ball to and they're in the slump. And I guess it gets to a point where guys are like, look, you keep having me passing these ball to people and they bricking, but that's not their role. Like, their role has been a lockdown defender and maybe get it. So I think that right now, and I get it, and before we got on there, and I know you're going to talk more about it, that the way to get out of a slump is you shoot yourself out of a slump.
Yeah.
But I also think that when a team is struggling and they're trying to get these wins, sometimes a person will be like, yo, why you want me to pass it to him when I know I can score or somebody else can score? So we're going to go to the three people who I know can help us win this game. So that's, in a way, that's a little bit of human nature. But I also do think that the Sixers do got to get a grasp more on that rotation to pick guys in the right spots. But that's me. I know you're going to break it down, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys say.
Yeah, I just think that, like you said, that when you shoot and you try to get yourself out of a slump, you have to shoot in order to get out of that. And that goes for James Harden. He had an awful shooting performance the other day. I think he was two made field goals, three made field goals. Yeah, 2 for 12 in the game. Now, look, he had 11 assists. He made sure he handed out the basketball. That helped things out overall. And it also helps out when Tyrese Maxey is dropping the shots the way that he was. But, yeah, I mean, he has to shoot himself out, too, in that way. But he also has to make sure that the ball moves. A lot of times we see, and we talked about it early on, where they've kind of made an adjustment where he would dribble so much, that dribble, bang, bang, bang. And as he's doing that, guys are just standing around. That's not helpful. So when we talk about, yes, guys knowing their role, pace and all, and spacing and all, the ball movement is important to keep the defense honest, to keep the defense off balance, and not have it so predictive, where it's not so, predictable with what they're doing. And that's something that, as he's saying that, because a lot of times I look at James Harden, I'm like, he's saying stuff, but he's not doing that himself. He's not practicing what he's preaching a lot of times. Now, he's sharing the basketball. We can't deny that. But oftentimes we see, but that comes with James Harden. He's going to dribble. He's going to have those types of possessions where it's going to be there. So it was an interesting quote. Everybody has their roles. You're absolutely right. Shooters, defenders, passers, all that, ball handlers. If they're trying to get to where they have to get to as a high-level player that he is, practice what you preach sometimes too, and recognize what else is going on. But I do like when he sees that Tyrese Maxey is rolling, he finds Tyrese Maxey to make sure that he keeps rolling. So it was an interesting one. I'm curious to see what the listeners and the viewers think about that, all the Sixers fans out there. Final one on the other side. We got to talk about the Wizards briefly. The Sixers and Wizards do play a game tonight, first of two this week, Monday and Wednesday. We'll talk about what they may or may not be as a challenger tonight. We'll get into that next right here, Locked On 76ers.
What's up?
Welcome back to Locked On 76ers. That's Keith Pompey. I'm Devon Givens. Hey, this is live, man. A lot of times things happen. You just got to get up and do what you need to do. I know you have some things to do, too. You got to get to, some things with the.
Nah. It's funny. What happened is I was just over there jamming, listening to the music, and then it's about to end. What's up?
Well, listen, man. Tonight, the Wizards, they're now 3-3 after a loss to the Boston Celtics on Sunday night. So this will be the second night of a back-to-back for them. They go back to Washington to host the Sixers. Then the Sixers return the favor and host the Wizards on Wednesday, 6 o'clock special start time, because the Phillies are playing on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. So busy down there in the sports complex across the street. So listen, the team, they're playing okay. They're playing better. I watched some of that Boston game, even on a football Sunday, and they were struggling. Bradley Beal didn't score until the third quarter, late in the third quarter, with his first free throw, and then he didn't make his first field goal until about less than 2 minutes to go in the third quarter, and they lose big time to the Boston Celtics. Not a good performance by the Washington Wizards, but they are 3-3. Sixers 3-4 right now. I do believe the Sixers are a better basketball team. They should win, even if Joel Embiid is not there. They made some changes to their roster. Keith, Monte Morris, Will Barton coming in, Kristaps Porzingis. We didn't see him last season, even though the trade happened last season at the deadline. What do you look at this? What are you seeing in this Washington team with this game tonight against the Sixers?
I think the Washington's going to bounce back, but I don't think they'll get a win. And what I mean by that, this is a place where the Sixers have traditionally struggled at, though, coming to DC. For whatever reason, it's just been tough for them. But, a guy like Bradley Beal, when, he's an all-star, all-NBA caliber player, I don't expect a guy like that to struggle 2 nights in a row, right? I just don't. And as much as we talk about the Sixers defense with Matisse and all that improved, they still have, that's a small sample size. So they still have to prove it, right? So I expect Bradley Beal to have a quality game, but I do think that the 76ers, if Joel Embiid plays or if he doesn't play, I do think that they'll pull out a win here. I just think that they're a better team.
Yeah, one of my things on this road trip, Keith, was I wanted to see them win. Since they started off the way that they did, 1-3, I wanted to see them win 3 or 4 on this 4-game road trip. And tonight is that game where they have to make sure that that record is just that, not 2-2. You have a real good chance of where you are right now of winning this game tonight against a team that played on the second night of a back-to-back. Coming in, as you said, make your statement, win 3 games in a row, and start to feel real good about yourself. And I imagine that they do after the 2 wins that they've had. They haven't been perfect, but they have gotten the W and gotten the job done. So Washington does pose a problem because they have a lot of different players. Bradley Beal, starting with him as the player that he is, you got to slow him down, and he's not going to have 2 consecutive games, 2 consecutive nights where he's going to perform that poorly. Then the Porzingis factor. He seems to be fitting in pretty well with them. Off the bench, you bring in Will Barton. Monte Morris is there. Also, Kyle Kuzma is having a pretty good start to his season as well. The Sixers need to make sure that they gear up and saddle up for this one. It's not going to be easy. But I do think they win the game and improve to 4-4 on the season. 3 games this week, 2 against Washington, Friday against the New York Knicks, and then they're off for the weekend. So an important one right here, Keith, for this basketball team. So we'll, of course, be back with you guys tomorrow to talk about the result of the game, and we think the Sixers are going to win. So that should be it, but we want to see how they do it. Matisse will definitely going to have to play tonight with the outwing scores that they have on their roster. Thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Keith, you mind telling the fine folks where they can find us?
Yeah, just to repeat what D said, wherever you get your podcast, you can get this podcast. But make sure when you go to a YouTube channel and get us, make sure you click on that Liberty Bell, right? Click on that Liberty Bell and become a subscriber. Also tonight, I'm telling y'all, from 6 to 10, we talked about it in the opening. Listen to
Midnight tonight.
Midnight, okay. From 6 to midnight?
Yeah, 6 to midnight. Got the,
Yo, they working
yeah.
my man. Get ching. Can I get a couple dollars? So, from 6 to midnight, you get to listen to D on 97.5, the Divine Giving Show, right?
Yep.
So you do that, but also make sure you follow my man on Twitter, Divine G975. Follow me at Pompey on Sixers, right? On Twitter. But also you can read my work in the Philadelphia Inquirer. All right. Now we're busy today with all these like sports are going crazy in the Philadelphia area. But listen, y'all, come to us. We got you covered. We got you covered on the news.
We got you covered. All right, man. Well, listen, thanks, man. Go do what you need to do. I'll get myself situated. Also, everybody have a great rest of your Monday. Enjoy it. Phillies, the Sixers tonight. Should be a fun time in the area. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Peace.